Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to read an article and we're going to learn advanced vocabulary words and phrases. This is an article from CNN.com. The article's title reads, Apple has a huge problem with an iPhone factory in China. Okay, now let's go ahead and get started. So we'll first read the first paragraph of the article. I highly suggest that you read along with me so that you can practice your pronunciation. Okay, now let's start. A violent workers' revolt at the world's largest iPhone factory this week in central China is further scrambling Apple's strained supply and highlighting how the country's stringent zero COVID policy is hurting global technology firms. The trouble started last month when workers left the factory campus in Zhengzhou, the capital of the central province of Henan, due to COVID fears. Short on staff, bonuses were offered to workers to return. But protests broke out this week when the newly hired staff said management had reneged on their promises. The workers, who clashed with security officers wearing hazmat suits, were eventually offered cash to quit and leave. Okay, great job. So the first word that we're going to learn today is the word stringent. Pronounce that with me. Stringent. Stringent. So stringent is used as an adjective. It is used to describe something that is strict or severe, and it can refer to rules, regulations, or standards that are strictly enforced. It can also refer to a situation that is difficult or harsh. We usually use the word stringent in conversations related to rules and regulations, such as when discussing safety protocols or legal restrictions. For example, one might say, the government has issued stringent new regulations on the use of hazardous materials. In a company, for example, you may say, the company has a stringent policy against employees taking long lunches. Now let's take a look at that word again in the article. Here we have the country's stringent zero COVID policy is hurting global technology firms. So stringent here is the adjective and it describes the zero COVID policy. So it describes the stringent or strict zero COVID policy.
I can assure you VSI's products have the most stringent safety standards in the industry.
The next word that we're going to learn today is the phrasal verb broke out. Now let's take a look at that word again in the article. Protest broke out this week when the newly hired staff said management has reneged on their promises. So in the article, this phrasal verb here means to start suddenly, especially for war, fighting, or similarly undesirable things. Here are other examples. The war broke out in 1939. The two boys broke out in a fight over a piece of cake. I broke out in a rash. I break out when I eat something sweet. So this all means something suddenly appearing. It could be a fight or it's something undesirable. To break out, you can use this, for example, if suddenly there's pimples popping out of your face. So you can say, oh, I'm breaking out. And the other meaning of the phrasal verb broke out is to escape. For example, the prisoner broke out of his cell.
The war broke out, I lost my advertising firm, and here I am.
The next word is reneged. Okay, pronounce this with me. Reneged. Reneged. Reneged here is a verb that means to go back on a promise or commitment. Let's take a look at the article again. Here we can see the management had reneged on their promises. So meaning to say the management went back on a promise. So since this is a verb, we can conjugate this. So let's take a look at the past form. So in the past form, we just add D. Here's an example. The young man reneged on his promise to help his parents with their taxes. Now let's take a look at the present tense. I reneged on my promise to help you. Finally, let's take a look at how to use this in future tense. If he doesn't keep his promise, I'm afraid he will renege on his word.
We already ordered supplies. We can't renege on that.
The next word we're going to learn is another phrasal verb, to clash with. So what do people do when they clash with each other? So when people clash, they fight, they argue, or they disagree with each other. So when do we use this? We use clash with to describe a situation in which two or more people, ideas, or objects are in conflict or disagreement. For example, you might say, his opinion clashed with mine on the issue. I was in a constant clash with my sister over who gets to choose a TV show.
This morning, the search for the fugitives known as the Devil's Rejects resulted in a violent clash with police.
Now we're in the second paragraph of the article. Now let's read together. Analyst says the woes facing Taiwan contract manufacturing firm Foxconn, a top Apple supplier which owns the facility, will also speed up the pace of diversification away from China to countries like India. Daniel Ives, Managing Director of Equity Research at Wedbush Securities, told CNN Business that the ongoing production shutdown in Foxconn's sprawling campus in the central Chinese city of Zhengzhou was an albatross for Apple. Every week of this shutdown and unrest, we estimate, is costing Apple roughly $1 billion a week in lost iPhone sales. Now, roughly 5% of iPhone 14 sales are likely off the table due to these brutal shutdowns in China, he said. Okay, so the next word is another phrasal verb. We have speed up. Speed up. To speed up is to cause someone or something to move very quickly. We also use this when we want to refer to an increase in the rate of something. Here are some examples. We need to speed up the process if we want to get this done by the end of the day. So here's another situation where you can use this in a work setting. So for example, you guys have a project and it's due at the end of the day. So you can say something like, let's speed up so we can finish this project by the end of the day. So here's another useful example that you can use in a work setting. Let's speed things up so we can go home.
And I thought maybe of a plan that might speed things up.
The next word is an adjective, sprawling. Sprawling. Okay, pronounce that with me. Sprawling. Okay, good. Okay, so what is sprawling? So sprawling describes something that is spread out widely over a large area, often in an untidy way. Now, when do we use this word? We use this word to describe something that is spread out or covers a large area. For example, you might want to use this word to describe a sprawling city or a sprawling landscape. Here's an example. The sprawling city of Los Angeles is full of culture and life.
Her musings on Florida and orchid poaching, Indians, it's great sprawling New Yorker stuff. And
the next word is a noun this time. This is the word albatross. Albatross. Okay, pronounce that with me. Albatross. So albatross is a noun. Now, if you describe someone or something that is an albatross around your neck, that means that they're causing you a great problem that you cannot escape, or they prevent you from doing something. Now, let's take a look at the word from the article again. The ongoing production shutdown in Foxconn's sprawling campus in the central Chinese city of Zhengzhou was an albatross for Apple. It means that the shutdown that happened in the city of Zhengzhou was a hindrance for Apple. Now, can you name some synonyms that has the same meaning with albatross? So here we have hindrance, obstacle, and burden.
An albatross of a contract that requires you to go through a slow approval process to enact changes, if they're approved at all.
Okay, so next is a phrase, off the table. Okay, pronounce that with me. Off the table. When something is off the table, it means that something is no longer officially available, or it's no longer being considered. It can also mean that the subject is no longer open for a discussion or negotiation. So here's an example. After today, this offer will be off the table. Now let's use this in a context. So let's say you're looking for a job and you happen to see a job ad online. Next, you submitted your application, and after a few weeks, you haven't heard back from the HR. So what you did was you called up the HR and you asked if this job is still on the table. Unfortunately, the HR responded, "I'm sorry, but that offer is off the table now."
Everything under and behind the sun, on and off the table.
If you made it this far, then great job. So we are in the third paragraph of this article. So if you enjoy this type of lesson, please let me know down in the comments below. So if you have any feedback or any suggestion that would make this lesson a lot better, so please let me know down in the comments. Also, if you need a lesson summary for every video that I make, so please let me know as well. I usually don't make a lesson summary, but if you need me to, so I will make one for you. Just let me know down in the comments. Okay, now let's continue. Let's read the third paragraph. Demand for iPhone 14 units during the Black Friday holiday weekend was much higher than supply and could cause major shortages leading into Christmas, Ives said, adding that the disruptions at Foxconn, which started in October, have been a major gut punch to Apple this quarter. In a note Friday, Ives said Black Friday store checks show major iPhone shortages across the board. Based on our analysis, we believe iPhone 14 Pro shortages have gotten much worse over the last week with very low inventories, he wrote. We believe many Apple stores now have iPhone 14 Pro shortages of up to 25% to 30% below normal heading into a typical December. Ming-Chi Kuo, an analyst at TF International Securities, wrote on Twitter that more than 10% of global iPhone production capacity was affected by the situation at the Chengzhou campus. Next is an idiom this time. Gut punch. Gut punch. Obviously, punch means to hit something and gut means your stomach. So when you say gut punch, it means that bad news that causes the recipient to feel physically affected. It's pretty much synonymous with something that is gut-wrenching, an event or experience that makes you feel sad or upset.
Yeah, it's a gut punch to the nads, all right.
And the last one is a phrase. Phrase is across the board. So the phrase across the board is used to refer to a situation in which a change or action applies to everyone or everything in a group without any exceptions. You can also use this to refer to a general increase, for example, wages or prices. Here are some examples. If a company announces that there will be a 10% raise across the board, that means that all the employees in the company will receive that 10% raise, regardless of their position or seniority. So we can say, we implemented a 10% pay raise across the board for all employees.
We're making some significant cuts across the board.
So great job for making it this far. Now let's test what you've learned. I prepared 10 fill-in-the-blank questions, and what you're going to do is you're going to complete the sentences using the correct vocabulary. Now, if you're ready, let's start. That is it for today. I hope you found this video very useful, and thank you so much for joining me here today to learn some English. And don't forget to connect with me on all my other social media accounts, so don't forget to join my private Facebook group. I also have my Instagram. And thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.